Hey everyone, it's Tom here from Object Space. I'm a 3D and augmented reality artist. I create experiences such as these for clients, including record labels, agencies, brands, influencers, and of course I like to make them for fun as well. In this video I'll be showing you exactly how to build this particular avatar based on the Imma Degen NFT project. What's so cool about this particular project is that every NFT that you buy also comes with the accompanying 3D model. So that means we can use these models to create effects such as this and more advanced filters such as this one. So stay tuned and I'll show you exactly how to get started with Lens Studio and then create your very own AR avatar using your Imma Degen 3D model. So the first thing we're going to do is download the Degen avatar, and the way to do that is to go to tools.immadegen.com/3davatar. This is the official link from Void. You then link up your MetaMask account and it gives you access to any of the Degens in your wallet. So download your avatar and it should save an FBX file. The next thing you're going to want to do is install and open Lens Studio, which is Snapchat's development platform. It's free for everyone to download. What we're going to do is just create a new project. So once a new project is open, what we can do is go ahead and import our FBX, either by dragging or clicking plus import from files. You should notice that inside the folder that we kept the FBX is now another file which is essentially unpacked all of the textures that came with the FBX. So once this is imported, don't worry about all of these warnings, they aren't an issue. We then have our FBX, then import all of our textures. So select all of the ones you want to import. I'm ignoring any roughness maps for now. So grab those textures and I'm just going to drag and drop. So inside Lens Studio we have an objects panel here. This is all of our scene setup. We have resources down here. This is going to be all of our textures, all our models. Scene viewer here. This is where we look around our 3D scene. Script logger down here. An inspector over here on the right, which has all the settings, all the attributes of our objects. And then a preview panel here on the right. This is where we simulate our filters, and we can also turn on webcam and use it on ourselves. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to try and add this FBX file that we've imported and put it on our heads. So what we're going to do is add a head binding. So you can type in head or just scroll around here to find it. Click on head binding. This essentially tells Snapchat to create a binding to the head of the first user that it finds. So if you click on head binding in the inspector, you can see it's face index 0, which is actually the first person. We're actually going to delete this occluder. And now we've got a head binding, we can kind of see in 3D space where our head is. Open up the FBX group here. And you're going to want to select this kind of grayed out P object here and drag that onto the head binding. This is absolutely huge, but there he is. Here's our FBX file. So I'm probably going to want to scale him down by about 10 or so to 0.1. And you can manipulate by pressing W, E and R for translate, rotate, scale, which is also visible up here. Translate, rotate, scale. So I'm just going to translate them down with W, and I'm going to switch over to my webcam, and you can see that actually 0.1 scale at this position is pretty good. So you can see roughly the proportion of a reference head to the model head. So I'm just going to scale it down a little bit more with R and the scale handle over here, and just pull him forward until he's roughly where the head reference object is. And then you can see in the preview panel it's pretty accurate. I'd be happy enough with that. So this is how we bring our model in and bind him to our head movements. Now as you can see we have this kind of pink and black template material that's on this object. So what we need to do is then attach textures to all of the shaders that have been brought in. So by default it brings in some materials that are attached to the object. What I'm going to do is actually create a new simple PBR material. This is just a kind of default material with a couple of attributes already set for us. Down here you can see the different materials that are brought in with our object by default based on the FBX file. We can actually use these, select the trippy skin, and then over here you've got the inspector of all the attributes of the trippy skin material. Yours will be called something particular based on whatever void that you've got. And we have a base texture, which is at the moment, which is nothing, which is why we're getting this pink and black material. So we're going to select texture, and then we're going to select our base color. And there we go. So we've got our trippy skin texture attached to our material. Now, if we want it to look a bit more lifelike and react to lighting a bit better, what we want to do is turn on specular in the lighting. So drop down lighting, make sure you've got your material selected, drop down the lighting, and turn on specular. So this is where you'd import your roughness or material parameters. We're just going to have a really basic setup, and we're going to use these textures that are created when we imported the simple PBR material. So I'm going to go down and select the white material, and you can see the specular is now changed. This white material, like I said, is the one that's created with a simple PBR material. So let's go back to the trippy skin, and you can see that under the specular lighting options we have a metallic and roughness slider. Now these are only really activated when there's a material input into the material parameters. So obviously this isn't a metallic object, so we're going to turn the metallic off. And you can see it gets brighter because it's not absorbing as much light. And then there's a roughness parameter. So this will be how shiny. For low roughness, be super shiny, or really matte with a high roughness. So we'll just have a bit of specular shininess, but not much. One thing we've got here, which I haven't mentioned yet, is obviously this is an FBX file, so we have a model with a rig. Under here we've got a void model group with a root and the pelvis, so these are all of the joints as part of a rig. This isn't the best pose for a 3D avatar. What I'm going to do is go down the spine joints and find my arms, and I'm just going to rotate them slightly by pressing E in the viewport, and I'm just going to rotate them to be a bit more standard. So I'll take the right arm as well and just pose him with his arms down by his side. This way, at least when I'm further back in camera, it looks a bit better than a T-pose. So this is, you know, our rig, but then we also have our objects here, the expression, which is our body, clothing, eyes, mouth, and we can essentially turn these on and off depending on what we want. So for example, I may want my mouth visible, so I'd uncheck the gagged mouth, and now you can see that updating in the viewport and the simulator. Same with the eyewear, so you can unhide that and you've got some eyes. But obviously every Degen is different and everyone has their own accessories, so it's kind of up to you whether you want to keep it as your NFT is in reality, or if you want to maybe customize them a bit, and you know, you could take the clothes off to reveal the full body. So we want to apply materials and textures to every object. Obviously we've done the trippy skin. Let's move on to the red shirt. Click on the red shirt in the inspector, click on the shirt texture, and as you can see, that's been updated. The textures that came with the shirt are very low res. I think you can request higher res textures from Void themselves in the Discord. But again, we're going to go to the specular. I want us to have a bit of lighting influence. I'm going to go and select my white texture for the specular material parameters. and then you can see it's still got metallic on it. I don't want any metallic, but I do want fully rough because, you know, cloth material would tend to be fairly matte and diffuse. We're then going to do the same for the hat. So the hat's using the skull shader down here in your resources. Click on skull shader, click on the texture, click on the skull cap, use that. It's quite bold, quite bright. I'm going to click on specular. We're going to click on the material parameters, and we're going to use white. And again, I'm probably going to reduce the metallic and maybe give a bit of shininess to it, and possibly boost the metallic up a tiny bit more just to kind of take off some of that boldness that comes with the hat. And again, for the gag mouth, click on the texture attribute, click on the gag texture, and I'm not even going to add any specular because I think, you know, that's looking good as it is. Now, some of these objects didn't have texture maps with them, they're just block materials. So for example, let's take the VR shader. There's no texture for this, so what we're going to do is click on the VR shader, turn off the base texture because we don't have a texture, but we're going to give it a black color or a dark color. Click OK. And I do want a bit of specular, so I'm going to turn on specular, and you can see that's fully reflective. I'm going to add my material parameter white, and then I'm going to just reduce the roughness until it's a bit more shiny, bit more kind of like a shiny plastic. And the same again with the neck cushion. I'm going to turn off base texture, and I'm going to give it a kind of darkish grey, and that's kind of looking okay. One thing you could do for this kind of material is maybe add a slight rim highlight, just to give it a kind of fuzzy, kind of velvety feel. So as you can see, we've hooked up all of our textures and materials. It's looking pretty good. One thing I'm going to do is click on the hat material, the skull shader, and I'm just going to turn on two-sided up here because you kind of see inside the cap. It gives itself a back face essentially so that you don't see through it. So what I'm going to do for this is actually bring in my own mouth and place it on top of this character. So I'm going to hide the gag because I want to be able to see my mouth. I don't want the gag on there. And normally I would build this out so that the 3D model's mouth and facial features would move with my own facial features. But that's a much more advanced tutorial that I might look at doing another time. But what I'm going to do is actually add my mouth on top. So if I click on plus in the objects panel, and you could just type face or inset and click on face inset. So as you can see, this has now actually cut out my face from the camera texture and placed it into my scene. So by default it brings it up in 2D space based on a kind of 2D position of my face. What you're going to want to do is actually click 3D scene because we're now using a 3D objects instead of my actual facial positions. And you can see that if I press W and E and R, I get the controls. I'm going to just place it down by the actual lips of the 3D character. So as you can see now, I'm able to talk as my Degen and creates, you know, it's a pretty funny effect. So I'm going to press R for scale and just scale him up a bit, and maybe just drag him up a bit as well. So now I can literally talk as my Degen with my own mouth showing up in its place. You can control the alpha, you can control the border radius to make it a bit sharper, or, you know, blend out the edge a bit more. And yeah, I think so. This is quite a cool way of actually creating a really basic avatar that you can use for streaming as your Degen. And you can do voice calls, you can stream on Twitch, you can do YouTube. And I'll show you in another video exactly how to set all of that up. Because I've got kind of VR eyes, I'm just going to hide my VR headset, and I haven't actually applied any textures to my eyes yet, so I'll just go in and apply my iris texture to my eyes, and again add specular, select the white, and I'm going to make it super shiny, but not metallic. This would be how the Degen would look if my NFT came without an eyewear object, for example. But I'm going to turn it back on because I like how it looks. What I'm going to do is actually duplicate my face inset by pressing Ctrl D or right clicking duplicate. And I'm going to, on the attributes inspector, I'm going to change it from face region mouth to left eye. And that's a bit weird. Now I've got the left eye, which again I can go to 3D space and actually place this left eye on my VR headset. And this way I'm going to scale it up. So now I'm going to duplicate this again, Ctrl D or right click duplicate. Go to 3D space, press W to move it across. I'm going to actually take minus 3.45 and turn it to plus 3.45 and change it from left eye to right eye. So now this is a lot more expressive, and I think you could do streaming, you could go on video calls, and people would still be able to get your expressions through whilst repping your Degen avatar, which is pretty cool. The final thing we're actually going to do is replace the background, because I'm not too keen on seeing myself in the background. It would be better to have kind of a block color. So click plus, and I'm going to go click a screen image. So you can type in screen and screen image. As you can see, this has put kind of a placeholder image in front of us, and it's got a material and a default texture. What I'm going to do is actually create my own material, which is an unlit material because you don't want any lighting for a plain background texture. And then this then has a white texture applied. So I've created a new unlit material. I'm going to go and click on that and change the color to, any color you want, but I would suggest using the color of your Degen. So I've got this kind of peachy color. What you can do is actually tab out, pick screen color, and I'm going to click on that one. So that's the color of my background. And as you can see, that's in front of me, which is not the effect we want. So what we've done here is actually we've created an orthographic camera. So this is different to the original camera. This is a 3D camera that exists in 3D space. The orthographic camera is purely a 2D projection camera that allows you to add 2D images that's separate in terms of perspective. What we're going to do is select the screen image and click fill and cut. Let's do fill and cut. That then takes up the whole of the screen, and the best way to really fix that is to actually change the render order of the cameras. So click on scene configuration next to resources at the bottom, and you can see that actually the orthographic camera is rendering after the 3D camera. So we want to drag that above the 3D camera, and there we go. Now the background is being rendered first, followed by the 3D camera, and this is then my 3D Void avatar that I can use to stream with. If your Void doesn't have VR goggles like this one, obviously you have regular eyes, so you could either keep the regular eyes, or you could select the face insets, go to 3D mode, and potentially you could have the eyes, your own eyes, on top of the Void eyes like this, which I think is still quite effective, so that's an option as well. So what we're going to do is actually test it out by sending it to Snapchat. So what you want to do is pair your phone, pair your Snapchat account with Lens Studio, and you can actually send it to your phone, and then you'll open it up in the app and test it out to see how it looks. So once you send it to your phone, you should get a notification, and it should show up on the main carousel, and then you can test it out. So now we've created this avatar. Hopefully you've synced up your Snapchat account, logged into My Lenses so you can publish your own lens. and tested it out. Once you're happy, what we're going to do is publish it. So first thing is top left corner, we're going to go to project info. We're going to change it to a name for our lens. So I'm going to call it Degen 7974, which is the NFT I own. Ensure that the size of the lens is less than 8 megabytes, although I'd recommend less than 4 megabytes ideally. And then here you can add an icon if you wish, add a preview that is visible when you publish it. For now I'm just going to leave these blank and click apply. So the next step is to publish. So click on publish lens. It will then upload your lens to My Lenses, which is linked to this icon up here. Once that's done, you should get a new web browser pop up, and now it's asking you to submit a lens. So it's going to be a community lens, so click community, submit a new lens. This is where you'll see your preview and your icon show up, which you can update later if you wish. We want this to be public, but it could also be hidden. So public means anyone can find it and share it and use it. Hidden means it's usable, but you need to have a link to share it. So perhaps if you want this avatar to be exclusively yours, you could set it to hidden so that only people you send the link to can use it. I'm going to leave it on public and I'm going to click submit. So this will go to review, assuming it passes all Snapchat's policies. Generally, bear in mind it's going to be for about 13. Oh look, already live, so that was super quick. Generally, it needs to be appropriate for ages 13 and up. So this is now public already. So now that it's public, we can actually share this lens by copying this. You get a share link, and if we were to paste that in, it will show up here, and it gives you a snap code that you can scan with the Snapchat app, or you can literally go to this link on a mobile and it will open up the lens. It should also, in theory, show up on your Snapchat account under your profile, but it might take a few days to show up, and it might need a certain amount of views. You can also get your insights here. So I'll just run through how to update the project if you wanted to. I want to add an icon. I'm going to add my Degen. This will be my icon. I'm happy with that. And I'm going to add a preview. And let's just use a stock preview for now. So click open mouth. Okay, so that'll give people an idea of what the lens does. Click apply. And mainly it's going to be for my front camera. Unlikely I'll be using it on my rear camera. And then let's go and republish. So it's community lens, and let's click update an existing lens. And let's update the Degen. So now we've got a new preview and a new icon, and click submit. So once your lens has been approved, you can obviously share it with your friends. You can open it on Snapchat. But you can also use it in video capture software. So you can replace the source of your video camera to be Snap camera. You can then simulate the lens itself. And I'll show you exactly how to do that in a later video. So I hope this tutorial was useful. I really just want to see as many people as possible wearing their Degens and video calls, work calls, streaming, basically get the Degen army out there into the real world. So yeah, give me a shout if you have any questions about how to do all this. Follow me on Twitter, my details should be below. And yeah, any donations would be amazing. And yeah, I'm gonna try and do a few more videos and show you a few more examples.